Hi, so this is Courtney, and I'm here today to talk to you about how to remember how to sequence and what to sequence. And so this was a request from a fellow YouTube watcher, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate it. I love questions. Questions spark my mind and help me remember and know what you want. So let's get started. And if you like this content, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. So first of all, this particular question was someone who has my book, The Mud and the Lotus. And so if you are using my book, what I would tell you is I wrote this book as a curriculum for my school, and then I published it so other schools could use it. So it's a book and a workbook. And if you will read on page 53, where it starts with asana, and read through that, that will give you some basics. And then as you go through the postures, you should know that I put them in a logical sequence. Now there aren't transitions in there, but they are in a logical sequence, and some of the postures in there are transitions, and we'll get to that later. And then on page 121, there's a sample class and guidelines, and that is basically a written out class for you. And it tells you, start with some pranayama or some centering. Warm up the body after you've introduced yourself and you've done some kind of, centering, getting them ready to practice. You've set your intention or whatever you choose to do. Get some pranayama, some 2-part, 3-part breathing, and then warm up your body. So you're going to do some gentle postures to get the body warm, some joint loosening, and then a half sun salute maybe. These are just examples. Then a full sun salutation, and maybe you want to go real slow if you're doing a more gentle class, or maybe you want to do, I don't really teach the fast vinyasa because I was taught in a more classical style, but you could. And then you want to choose your postures in sequence in a logical order. So what that might look like is after you have done your sun salute and you're in a standing posture, then you're going to do your standing postures while you're standing up, your balancing postures, and then back down to the floor for your final seated postures, and then reclined postures and inversions, and then something like knees to chest and twist to release the back, and then shavasana, and then come up for your final seated meditation or ending. So that is on page 121, and the next page I gave a logical sequence, and this is actually a sequence I created that is what I call my vanilla class. And we're going to come back to that in just a minute as I go over these other tips. So you have to understand natural sequencing, and that will lay out the foundation for you. That when you're seated, you want to move to standing in a natural fashion. That might be coming to all fours. It's most of the time it's going to be coming to all fours, or coming from squat to forward fold to standing, something like that, or all fours to down dog. Your transition poses are usually going to be down dog, forward folds, all fours to forward folds, all fours, sorry, my puppy dog, he's like the policeman, all fours. Squats are good transition poses. So these poses move you from one area to the next, from seated to standing, standing to seated, even to your back, transitioning, like rolling down to the ground and having some space between standing and being on your back. You always want to have something there, like a seated posture, before you go to the back, because it's very jarring from standing. Use notes to study and to plan, but don't use notes to teach. Now, I can feel the collective sigh out in the YouTube world. I was a very strict teacher about this, and the reason I was is because I had a very strict teacher, and I know that strictness made me a better teacher. Just like we want to be told that diet, we can lose weight without diet and exercise. We all know it's not true, right? You have to change the way you eat and the way you live to lose weight. And teaching a good quality yoga class does not happen when you're staring at notes all the time, because you cannot plan for everyone that's going to be in your class. The day that you have planned a bunch of twists or a bunch of forward folds, sure enough, 5 pregnant people are going to walk into the room. Maybe you have inversions planned and someone comes in who has glaucoma or high blood pressure. And if you need contraindications for those postures, they are in the book. So I would recommend that you write out your sequence. You do it yourself. You record yourself. These are other things I have. Film or record yourself. Use your voice recorder on your phone, or film yourself on, like I'm doing right now with Photo Booth on my iMac. Or you can talk, like I have little Jameson. You can't see him over here, my rat terrier. Believe it or not, I've been teaching for 20 years, and for 20 years, I have been teaching my animals. That's right. I speak out loud. Even when I go do conferences, I practice on my animals. They come in here, I teach them as if, now they're terrible students, but you know, they don't talk back. So, and when you practice saying the words, it comes out more fluid when you're actually doing it. So practice teaching out loud. And then I have use a transition for every pause. And I'm going to go over some of this in a minute. So, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Let's say that you're seated on the floor. So you start to think about, what can I do next? Oh my gosh, I have completely blanked out. I don't know what to do. So just, you could even have them sit and take a few breaths. Okay, everybody, we're going to take, did y'all see how that light just changed? It just changed outside. There's no place in my house that there's not windows, so the light's constantly changing. So let's say that you have them seated and you have just blanked out. Have them close their eyes and take a few breaths. Don't go crazy about it. You know, just, okay, we're going to take 3 breaths. And then while they're doing that, get in your head again, okay, where can I go from here? So you can use transitions. Maybe you want to put them, give them the option of going to down dog or child's pose, and let them stay there. Tell them you can go to down dog, you can go to child's pose, take a down dog or cat cow. Have some what I call resting pause places that you can insert wherever you are. If they're standing, you can always go to forward fold. You can always go down to down dog. You can go to child's pose, and that'll give you a minute to recoup yourself and figure out what you're doing. And what I said earlier about my vanilla class. So people call this all kinds of things, and this was the language that I came up with when I first started teacher training back in 2008 when I started training teachers. I have a very vanilla routine, and it's the one that you see in the book. I put this routine together over years and years of teaching, and what I say is you can add sprinkles. You know, you can have vanilla ice cream and add some chocolate or some strawberry to it, or you can put strawberries on it or sprinkles. Don't try to give too much new in every single class. You may have a lot of repetitive things, but here and there, especially when you're first starting out, people try to get too crafty these days and too clever. And my friend Rena had a video recently called, what did she say? It's something like, don't try to be cute or clever, just basically say what you need to say. Well, when you're practicing your sequence or you're setting up your sequence, don't try to be clever. Maybe every class you start out either on your back or on the floor. Maybe you give yourself an option. And maybe every class you do this warm up, you know, where you go here and here and here and here. Maybe you do that every class, but then you add something in. So let's say that every class I start seated or on my back, and I kind of have a couple of options in my mind for that. And the next week I decided I'm going to add a new kind of posture, and you have to forgive me. This is sometimes called starfish, but also there's a starfish on the floor. But to reach down and under and lift up, right? You're going to add something new. So if each week you give them something new, 1 or 2 things new, it really helps solidify, number one, the practice for them, but they don't get bored. And I had a teacher one time who did the same class every week, and I got bored. But back when I was in, oh gosh, the 80s, I was a teenager, and I would go to aerobics classes, and just as soon as I would get the hang of something, the next class they would do something completely different. And I would always like it, like when we were doing ball chain or whatever. Once I got the hang of it, I would really like it when that part came, because I would feel like I could do it. And so it's the same thing with yoga. If you teach, maybe you teach the same class every time, but okay, I have this little sequence here that's 3 postures that are different that I'm going to add today. Or maybe I normally teach cat, cow. You know, I normally do my cats and my cows, and then I do a bird, dog, right? But maybe today I'm going to add, while we're here, thread the needle. So thinking about what you can add. Now let's go over a quick way of sequencing. So let's say that you start your class seated, and you do your postures. And by the way, my husband is a 9th degree dojo, and it was so interesting when we got married because we were both pretty far down our careers, and we both do this. We're not practicing perfectly. We're just kind of walking through the motions, right? And he does this when he is practicing to compete. He's just retired, but so you're not actually going through everything perfectly. You're not going to have perfect form. So you're here, you do your side laterals, you do your twist on the left and right. Maybe you do a little bit of pranayama, and then you want to start to do some more warm up. Well, think about what's next. Well, just coming from standing here is awkward, okay? Or coming back from your back here and getting back up. You're at the beginning of class. So you're gonna want to come to the floor, to all fours, right? This is not the most flattering shirt. And you think about, what can I do here? I can cat and cow, I can child's pose, I can bird dog, I can circle, right? We can do our circles. I like to put my hands out, back and forth. We can clean out, we can barrel roll. Some people call this cleaning out the inside of a frosting container. That would make me so sick, but something like that. We can do our thread the needles. There's so much we can do on all fours. So have in your library, in your brain, all the things you can do. Here's a word of caution. If you have people down on their hands for too long, their wrists are going to get tired. So give them a break every once in a while with a child's pose, or even threading the needle. Have them come and, turn their wrist back, shake their arm, put a blanket under there. Don't keep them on their hands the whole time. Take some kind of move that gives them a break and have them shake their hands out. Okay, so you're all fours. What comes naturally after that? Well, if we want to come to standing, we could do it through a lunge, right? Coming up. Make sure you always do both sides, right? We could come up and come forward. We could come through down dog, right? We could be here and decide to come back and come into a squat and then come up from there, okay? And maybe we're going to come up through forward fold and standing. And because I don't know if I can stay in the frame, look at me, I did it. Okay. If we're in standing, we can start with mountain. We can come arms forward. What all can you do standing? You can do lateral leans. You can do your warrior ones. You can do your warrior twos, your wide-legged stances, your high squats, your goddess poses. You can come into your side leans, your revolved warriors, all the things. Think of all the things. And then try to slow down. Slow down. Holding people in postures is challenging. And we have become, I'm sorry guys, I have a heart condition and I've been a little under the weather, so my breathing's been a little compromised. Not to mention I live on a farm and everything is blooming. So you've got them up, you're doing everything. Have them hold those postures. I'm on the floor, so I'm not going to go real wide. Have them hold the postures. This begins to, if you want more challenge. If you don't want more challenge, maybe 15 seconds. Here. You could go into a triangle. You could go into a revolved triangle. You could go into your pyramid posture. So much. Okay, now you're in standing and you want to get them back to the floor. What do? What's a logical transition? You could squat. You could commonly is forward fold, hang. You could have them walk it out to down dog. You could have them squat down, right? But what you do for sure want them to do is come to a seated position before you take them to their back. Again, what all can you do when you're seated? So much, so much. This is a good time for your series of fish postures or sage postures, doing your seated spinal twist here, even your wide-legged laterals, your wide-legged forward folds. Maybe you want to even do some Baddha Konasana. I generally put these in the beginning, but you could put them at the end, and then you hug them together, whatever you want to do. So all your seated stuff here. Traditionally, seated forward folds are put near the end because they're calming to the nervous system and they prepare the body for meditation. So this is where it's good to have those seated forward folds. Now, as I've gotten older, I'm 49, I have had more back trouble because I've been a yogini since I was a kid, and I kept acting and practicing like a kid and didn't really take into account that my body would change because I didn't know. So especially people over 20, they need to stop doing the real aggressive forward bends, even if they're capable. So even though I can, maybe I'm going to go down here, or I'm going to just walk down here and let my head hang. About 2 or 3 minutes is great here because it prepares the body. It stretches the vagus nerve in the back and it prepares the body for meditation. Come up, sit with a little bit of meditation or just silent breathing. So after I've been on my bottom for a few moments, bending the knees, holding on, and rolling down. Well, once you're here, what do? Oh, I'm gonna take my hair down. Okay, so much, right? There's so much you can do. You can bridge, you can do reclined bridge with a block. Well, of course it's reclined, resting bridge. You can do all of your twist. You can do any of your legs up postures. Here, 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 up, use a strap, so many things. All right, and then I would recommend doing some kind of bridge and some kind of twist at the end of class to help release the back before you come into Savasana. Now, in Savasana, you want to have something, make sure that people are comfortable. Maybe you have bolsters or blankets. Just get them comfortable. I primarily teach chair classes these days. So I'll put a chair, they'll sit in a chair, they'll have a chair in front of them, and if they would like, they can put their feet up in that chair, and then they just palms up. And we go. Don't skip on Savasana. Don't skip on final meditation. People love it. And most people, even if they're not used to it and they're a little apprehensive, they will grow to love it. It's even though it's at the end of class, it's the main thing. It's what we're working to find that peace, to find that clarity. Asana is number 3 in the 8 limbs, right? Samadhi is number 8 in the 8 limbs, and you go through all of the steps to get there. So don't skip on Savasana. After you have them on their back in Savasana or wherever you choose to have them roll to their side. They can do the side of their choice. I write about the difference in my book, but either side's fine. And then have them sit up and take a moment to transition with a few breaths. Back in my day, we did a seated meditation at the end of class. That was very common. And so we were on our backs for a few moments, but then we were up for seated meditation. I still will do a little bit of a lengthy seated meditation at the end, a few minutes anyway, maybe 5 minutes. And then you can end however you want. There's a lot of people who still use Namaste and some people don't. Don't stress yourself out about it. just do the best that you can. All right. Thank you all, everyone, for being here. I appreciate you. And if you have any other questions, just send me a message below. Bye.